Okay, so this is the second time I'm recording this video. So I guess I need to mention a few things again. Problem 4 is super important. That's why there's all this like decoration. And now I have a little laser pointer. Isn't that great? That's why there's all this decoration here. You will absolutely, 100%, I guarantee, see this on exam 3. So yeah, let's just start going through these. Okay, so we're given these 3 graphs, and the goal is we want to write an equation for each of the exponential functions using the graphs. Okay, so okay, and let me make a few things very clear here. These are exponential functions. On, for example, your final exam, where everything is cumulative, you might very well be asked to write an equation for a linear function instead. So don't get these mixed up. They are very different. So because this says we want to write an exponential function, that means we should be using the formula y equals c times a to the x, just like before. Okay, so let's take a look at this graph here. We're given, it looks like a point here, and it looks like this point, the coordinates are 3, 21.6. But we're also given another point, and that's just the y-intercept. So this is 0, 100. And knowing the y-intercept here makes our lives really easy. So let's write that down. So knowing y-intercept gives us c, or the value for c, because when x is equal to 0, y is going to be equal to c times a to the 0, which is just c. So from the graph, we know that c is equal to 100. So far we've got y is equal to 100 times a to the x. And at this point, I just want to solve for a. And to do that, I'm going to use this point. Oh, what in the world? I'm going to use the point. Okay, now I can't use the little pointer. We're going to use the other point that we have, the only other information that we have about this graph. So use the point 3, 21.6. So that's my x value, and this one's my y value. And I'm just going to plug it in, solve for a. So we have 21.6 is equal to 100 times a cubed. And I'm still trying to solve for a. Okay, so the first thing that I think I can do is divide both sides by 100, right? So I get 21.6 divided by 100 is equal to a cubed. Okay, so now what I can do to solve for a, remember I just want a equals something. A cubed equals something doesn't really help me. in terms of writing the equation. So I'm going to use my rules of exponents. And I want to undo the cubed on the a. So I'm going to take both sides to the 1/3 power. So I get 21.6 divided by 100 raised to the 1/3 is equal to a cubed to the 1/3. And remember, at this point, we'll multiply the exponents. So 3 times 1/3 is just 1. So this says that a is equal to 21.6 over 100 to the 1/3. And then our final equation, let's see, where can I write this? I'm going to write it on the graph. Our final equation, you should probably put 21.6 over 100 to the 1/3 into your calculator. But I seem to have misplaced mine. So our final equation is y equals 100 times 21.6 over 100 to the 1/3 x. Okay, what is happening with my... Okay, here we go. So if this was confusing, please take a few minutes to go back over this and see where you're getting messed up and ask questions in office hours. Okay, so this guy, part 2 of problem 4, is exactly like the one that we just did. We're given some point, and we're also given the y-intercept. So this is going to be the same process as part 1. And so I'd like you, ideally, to try that on your own. See how it goes. But the third one is a little bit different. So what do we have here? We're given this point. So if I write that out, that looks like this is -2, comma 13.5. And I'm given this point down here, which is 1, comma 0.5. So what's different about this problem? You may be wondering. Well, we're not given the y-intercept. So that is to say, we're not given a value for c right away, so we're going to have to solve for c and for a. Okay, so I'm going to label these points. Maybe I'll call this guy point number 2 and this guy point number 1. So if I use point number 1 and I plug it into our usual equation, so y equals c times a to the x, I get 0.5 is equal to c times a to the first. And then using point 2, I get 13.5 is equal to c times a to the -2. So I'm going to need to somehow use this. What I'm going to do here is, since there's a few ways you can do this. You need to pick whether you solve for c first or a first. So using point number 1, I think it's easy to solve for A or for C. So using number 1, let's solve for C. Do I want to do that? Yeah, let's do that. So if I solve for C, that means I need to divide both sides by A. So I get 0.5 over A is equal to C. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this expression and I'm going to plug it in to the other equation. And then I'm going to get something that's completely in terms of A. So let's just go ahead and do that. I get 13.5 is equal to 0.5 over A times A to the negative 2. So remember, this is 13.5 over 0.5 times A to the negative 1 times A to the negative 2. What do I do with these exponents? I add them. So I'm left with 13.5 is equal to 0.5 A to the negative 3. To solve for A, I'm going to divide both sides by 0.5. So I get 13.5 divided by 0.5 is equal to A to the negative 3. And then I want to solve for A. So there's two things I could do here. If the negative 3 is bothering you, you can flip everything to make it a positive 3, right? So instead write 0.5 over 13.5 is equal to A cubed. But I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do, so to undo negative 3 power, I'm going to raise both sides to the negative 1/3, because negative 1/3 times negative 3 is going to be 1. So let's do that. So we get that A is equal to 13.5 over 0.5 raised to the negative 1/3. So we're sort of, kind of, halfway done. I think the second part won't be so bad. We just need to solve for C. I'm going to put this into the calculator really quickly, though, to make our lives easier. Evidently, A is equal to 3. So put this in your calculator, please, and check that this is equal to 3. There might be a typo on the worksheet or on the solutions. In any case, we'll just say this is 3. So far I have y is equal to c times 3 to the x. Oh, that won't make sense, will it? No, that doesn't make sense at all. Okay, you know what? Now let's put this in the calculator. Ah, I thought so. It's 1/3. That's what's wrong here. So there is a typo on the solutions. It says 3 instead of 1/3. Okay, I don't like how that looks. Okay, so now Finally, we can solve for c. So to do that, I can use either one of the points that I'm given. Maybe I'll use point number 1 again because x is going to be equal to 1. And that seems nice. So I get 0.5 equals c times 1/3 to the 1. So c is going to be equal to 0.5 divided by 1/3. And what is that equal to? It's equal to 1.5. Great, or 3/2, I guess. So our final answer is y equals 3/2 times 1/3 to the x. And, okay. And that's it. We're done here, I think.